Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. Joining me on the phone is Jimmy. Jimmy Champ, welcome.
What's going on, bro? How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. We'll get to head coaching hirings and the conference championship picks later this week. Today, we want to focus on the Browns and the most successful season they've had since I was a freshman in high school and Jimmy was in 6th grade. Jimmy, I was satisfied with this season after they beat Pittsburgh, so I wasn't too broken up Sunday. Have you recovered?
No, I'm not going to recover. This was a great season. They absolutely, without a doubt, overcame obstacles they had the last few weeks of the season. They played better than anybody could have expected. But I'm still not over this loss. It still hurts. I'm sure Kevin Stefanski would love to have that last offensive series back where he could change up his play calls a little bit. I hate that the last time I saw Nick Chubb touch the ball this year, he lost 3 yards. Like, it still stings, but the fact that it still stings in the second round of the playoffs is absolutely awesome and amazing, and the arrow was pointed straight up for the Browns' trajectory. So, while I'm not over it, I'm super excited to see where this organization goes in the next couple of years.
We often talk about teams knowing how to win. That's been a phrase we've used a lot in Cleveland. This just looked like one team that knew how to win games like this and one that didn't quite know how to find that extra gear when it mattered most.
Yeah, I agree. The offense stalled out a couple times. I've been really happy listening to some of the end-of-season interviews from players. Nick Chubb is taking a lot of what happened in the game on himself for having some drops where he had lots of room in front of him. A couple times where he tried to cut back and he just couldn't get there. So that's been good to hear. But I agree with you. As wild as it is, I've never gone on quite a roller coaster as I was where the defense got 2 stops and I'm like, oh my God, they can do this. And then they let Chad Henne run for 13 yards.
I actually have a list of plays here that I just kind of want to go through real quickly. I know a lot of people have criticized Stefanski for not running the ball more in the first half. And the first problem with that is they only had 3 possessions. Yeah. And the first possession, you kick a field goal, not good. By the time you catch the ball the second series, you're down 14-3. You get a holding call. Chubb had his 2 drops. And the next time you touch it, now you're down 16-3. And they limited the possessions, but they failed to score. And then Stefanski, you lose a timeout there with that bad challenge, but it didn't matter. You have Chad Henne 3rd and 14, and you can't get off the field.
Yeah, none of it mattered. At that point, none of it mattered. The only thing that frustrated me in the first half, really, was not running after a good run. Like, I think that was a missed opportunity, where they would run the ball on 1st and 10 and get 4 to 6 yards, and then go pass. I didn't like that. Kansas City's defense was being really aggressive off the edges to try to take away the boots and the rollouts, and it worked. So then what are you going to do? Baker wasn't able to just fire the ball out in 3 seconds like he's been doing. I still think he made some beautiful throws and some beautiful plays, but I agree with you. The first half of the football game, Kevin Stefanski was totally limited by the amount of possessions, the amount of time he had the ball, and the score of the game. Like, you couldn't chance running the ball 6 times, running 4 minutes off the clock, but not scoring points.
Yeah. And another thing to note on that last drive the Browns had where they ended up punting on 4th and 9, and I think you have to punt there. If you can't stop Chad Henne, you're not going to win the game anyway. Chris Jones just on 2nd and 3rd downs just blew plays up, and that's why he's right there in that group of guys right behind Aaron Donald for the best interior D lineman. And, I said it on the pod on Friday, if you go out there and you stand at them and you make them be exceptional to beat you, then so be it. Well, Kansas City kind of had to be exceptional to beat them, especially when Chad Henne came in.
Yeah, Chad Henne made 2 great plays. Chris Jones was great, but I would have loved seeing how aggressive Kansas City was on the first play after the interception, that second play, I would have loved to see some kind of quick out to Jarvis or the trickeration, some kind of reverse, something getting everybody going the other way and the play going the opposite way. But
I just think they ran out of possessions and they ran out of time.
Oh, I agree, but I still think there was opportunity there on that last series. And while I agree with what you're saying, we made a lot of quarterbacks this year who are about as good as Chad Henne look like Patrick Mahomes, which is why I think you let Baker throw that ball on fourth down. Is it probably going to be incomplete or intercepted? Probably. Expecting that defense to stop any quarterback 2 series in a row is probably a coaching mistake. So I wish they would have thrown the ball on fourth down. I don't know what would have happened, but I would have rather the game been in Baker Mayfield's hands than the defense's hands.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, let's be honest, the defense didn't even stop Chad Henne on the possession before. He threw quite possibly the worst interception I've ever seen. And we've seen a lot of bad interceptions in Cleveland.
Yeah.
He let go of that football, and I just remember thinking, well, is that a punt?
Yeah, it was absolutely horrible. You got the turnover. Like I said, I mean, I have zero problem with running the ball with Nick Chubb on first down there. But like I said, once they showed how aggressive they were going to be, I think you needed to do something a little different. It didn't end up happening, but that's okay. Like, you'll have that. And I think Kevin Stefanski will be back in this game again, and he'll have a chance to coach in this game again. And I'm excited to see that happen.
Yeah, I think everybody's going to learn from this game. And again, it's a young team, and they were 1-31 3 seasons ago. And they just went toe-to-toe with the defending champs in Kansas City with no crowd, but still, you went toe-to-toe with them.
Right, and I'm sure, if Mahomes stays healthy, they probably continue to throw touchdowns.
Yeah, probably.
But if the official doesn't miss the clear helmet-to-helmet contact, I don't think the Chiefs could stop Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt on the 1-yard line. So I think the Browns put that touchdown in the end zone, and that's before Mahomes was hurt.
Yeah, and then that you just kind of go from there. But if Mahomes stays in the game, they couldn't stop Mahomes from moving the ball at will.
No, but once Stefanski got into a flow, the offense was moving the ball pretty well, pretty easy as well.
Yeah. So there's plenty for them to learn, and I think, as you said, the arrow is trending up. Real quick, let's just go through some players and some positions that are going to be of note over the offseason. By the way, January, we're not worried about a quarterback. We're not worried about a coach. Isn't this a lot of fun?
It is a lot of fun. Before we get into that, I would like to talk to you about something.
Okay.
If you don't mind. So we would say, without a doubt, from the middle of the season to the end of the season, there was growth with Baker Mayfield, correct?
Yes, and that was the first person I wanted to bring up.
So Baker Mayfield got much better after a certain player was out of the game earlier in the season.
He was going to be the third person I brought up.
I apologize, because it's what I wanted to talk to you about all day.
Okay, so how about we start with Baker?
Okay,
because I feel like this can be a short conversation because I made my case that the Browns should extend Baker Mayfield. I think you can go to him with a 5-year, $30 million a year extension, and if he says, I want the Dak extension, you sign it. You've got him for 7 years at about $31-ish, $32 million over that time frame. You're locked in. You're good to go. If you wait to sign him after next season and you go to the playoffs again, the price tag just went up $5 million. That's why I think you make that move now.
Yeah, I think you have to. I think he's proven with what you have on the offensive side of the ball, he can lead the offense and he can make big plays in big moments when given the opportunity. I mean, he made some terrific throws in this game. Clearly, the team is behind him. They're okay being led by him, and it needs to not be a problem. How great would it be to just have our quarterback for 7 years, barring injury, the same guy starting every game? It would be amazing, and it's what the team needs. And it would be a jolt for the guys that have been there through the Hugh Jackson, Freddie Kitchens mess. It would be a jolt to them to know who's going to be under center every game, every week.
I also think it's important to send a message that the Browns are adding stability. And to be completely honest, I think Baker Mayfield's very Matt Ryan-ish. I think he's more dynamic than Matt Ryan, but I don't think he protects the ball quite as well as Matt Ryan. But he also takes some more chances, so you get, maybe a higher ceiling, lower floor than Matt Ryan gives you, but a little less consistency. I think that's worth $35 million a year.
Yeah, I mean,
and honestly, so does the rest of the league.
Let's not get it twisted. Matt Ryan should have one Super Bowl victory, and he should have gone to another Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan, if you're Matt Ryan good and the right pieces are around you, you can compete for a Super Bowl championship.
Okay, so we'll talk about Nick Chubb after we talk about OBJ. What would you do with OBJ, Jimmy?
All right, so here's the thing, right? So I'm pro OBJ. You know this. I think some of the off-the-field mistakes he's made are inexcusable, but when he's on the football field, I don't want to hear the slander. I watch him run good routes. As long as he's healthy, he's an exciting, dynamic player. If some of the swagger that Baker Mayfield got back the second half of this season, if he can keep that swagger, and he can just look at Odell as another wide receiver on the field, you have to re-sign Odell. I can honestly say I don't know what Odell's contract situation is. I want Odell on the field with this offense if Baker can just look at him as another guy, not the guy he's trying to feed the ball to. Because the end of that football game against Kansas City is very different if you have Odell Beckham on the field. Because you can run and out a smoke screen, a quick slant, and amazing things can happen. But you can't let Baker go back to force-feeding him balls when he's clearly not open and the defense knows it's coming. So if Baker's taken that much growth that I think he has, I want Odell on the field with him because I think the offense is damn near unstoppable at that point. If Odell was healthy and he's mentally okay and he's ready to play without getting 20 balls a game, where it's maybe you're only getting 8 balls thrown to you, but they're going to be good plays and you're going to be open and you're going to have a chance to make your mark on the game, then I want them both on the field.
If I were the GM of the Cleveland Browns, I would go to Kevin Stefanski in the offseason and I would say, we're going to hold on to OBJ for one more year. His contract details are different. It looks like some places say he has a couple years left. Some places say next year's the last one. But in general, he can be cut at any time, but it's a $14 to $15 million dead cap hit. I would not absorb that this year because you're not going to be able to trade him for anything coming off the injury. I go to Kevin Stefanski and I say, find a way to use this guy. Find a way. Find a way to get him 8 to 10 touches a game. Look how Kansas City gets Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce involved, where they run. Yep. They have their one or two plays that they know they can run pretty much at any time and get 5 to 7 yards, and maybe it's one of those where an over-aggressive defender, they make a move and you get a big play out of it. But I just don't understand why the Browns don't run a quick, like you said, the smoke screens, an end around. A quick slant. There's easy ways to get OBJ touches early in the game in the flow of the offense. If they're not going to use him that way, then there's no point in spending $15 million a year when all he does is seem to gum up the works.
I agree.
Now, a big part of that, too, is no offseason. He was out before the bye, and I think the offense, everybody looked like they knew what they were doing as a team better after the bye.
Yep,
so I think it's a little unfair to say, oh, yeah, everybody looked better after OBJ got hurt. It's like, yeah, that happened when the bye happened, so let's take a step back on that.
But I also think if you can get healthy, right-minded Odell on the field with Jarvis Landry, I do not believe Rashard Higgins and Donovan Peoples-Jones are like what you want as your starting wide receivers. I do think Rashard Higgins and Donovan Peoples-Jones can abuse most slot cornerbacks in the NFL. And if I can get Jarvis and Odell and those two guys on the field at the same time who Baker already has a good connection with, I think the offense it's going to be so hard to keep people at the line of scrimmage because you're going to be worried about the pass, and now Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt can go to work.
Okay, can we move on? Because I'm tired of talking about OBJ.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was tired of talking about him 6 months ago.
No problem.
Nick Chubb is available for an extension this offseason. Do you extend him? If so, how much? How long?
I extend him, but I'm very cautious with it. I'm not going
3 for 12.
Yeah, somewhere in there, and I'm probably going back heavy if I can on the contract, incentive weighting contract on the extension, whatever I can, because Nick Chubb appears to be a freak of nature, but so do Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey and Ezekiel Elliott.
So on the downside of that, you're signing a running back to fairly large contract, which none of these seem to ever pay off. On the other side of that, Nick Chubb hasn't had a ton of carries because he's missed some games, but he's also split time with Kareem Hunt. He had less than 200 carries this year, still put up 1,000 yards.
Yeah, and he didn't carry the ball much in college either.
Yeah, so I think there's room for a 3 at $12 million a year on the extension. So that'll probably work out to, I don't know what running backs get paid on their rookie scales, but if you look at it like I talked about with Baker, if you extend him and add the 5-year contract, that's a 7-year contract at about 31. That brings that total probably down a little closer to 4 years at about probably less than 10, maybe $9-10 million, and that's very palatable for a running back of his quality. He does two things that other running backs just don't do. He splits defenders near the line of scrimmage with his quickness and his burst.
Yep.
And it's the only other person I've seen split defenders as frequently as he does is Tyreek Hill, which is like, to think that Nick Chubb has that quick burst that Tyreek Hill does at Nick Chubb's size is just silly.
Yep.
And he has that breakaway speed, which goes along with that burst. He's just a difference maker. And I decry running backs constantly and say don't invest in them, but I think I would invest in Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I agree. To me, he deserves whatever the pay scale is. He deserves to be paid like a top 5 running back because I think that's what he is.
And Rashard Higgins is a free agent, and people are talking about what they would sign him for. If I have to jettison Rashard Higgins to find the extra money to sign Nick Chubb, then that's just what happens. At least if I'm in charge of the team.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's nothing personal on Rashard Higgins. It's just I think he has more value on the Browns than he does on the open market. But I think there's teams out there on the open market that are going to pay him way more than he's worth.
Probably. I guess it depends. It depends just how much of Baker's guy he is and how loyal he feels he needs to be to Baker and the Browns. Because you can't overpay Rashard Higgins.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's going to be a free agent, so I guess the Browns could offer him something earlier, but I don't see this team looking to spend money on a 4th or 5th wide receiver that he wouldn't even have played if some of these guys hadn't gotten hurt.
No, and Hooper had ups and downs. I know you have trouble seeing it, but Njoku played pretty well down the stretch. If Bryant can figure out how to hold on to the ball, he's a good route runner. I really like Peoples-Jones. I think he keeps flashing. I believe Hodges still under contract. But most of your throws need to be going to Jarvis and OBJ anyway.
Yeah, and Kareem Hunt should be the 3rd receiver on this team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's have at it, because this defense was a fucking atrocity this year. Other than Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett, I think we both liked B.J. Goodson. We thought he played pretty well. Sheldon Richardson definitely had moments. Pretty much everybody on the defensive line played well at one point or another. But the secondary, you're the GM, Jimmy. You're the Browns' 26th pick. What position are you hoping there's a really good player that falls?
before I get into that draft pick, before I get into that war room, before I make that decision, I have had to have had long talks with the medical staff that are taking care of Grady Williams and Grant Delpit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the singular question. And honestly, if I'm the GM, I'm not counting on either one of them. If they play, fantastic, but in terms of where I'm trying to fill holes, I can't count on them.
I don't disagree with that. If I have those long, hard talks and I believe they're going to be healthy to start the season, I'm either drafting a middle linebacker or an edge rusher because that's what they need.
Yeah, they can't cover. They if I was playing tight end, I'm not sure they could cover me.
No, and I agree with you. Mac Wilson is regressed this year. He's got to be better.
Same. Oh, go ahead.
Taki cannot be your starting linebacker. He is.
It's like if you could take the best moments of the two of them and put them together with the amount of time that both of them are average, you'd have a pretty good linebacker. But the problem is that it's two people; they're not one.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think both of them. I think Mac Wilson just needs to play up to his potential. I think he just had a down year. I think he can be better. I think Taki is a good piece situationally, but you cannot just have Taki in the middle of the field expecting to make plays, expecting to cover Travis Kelce, expecting to tackle wide receivers slanting across the middle of the field. But all of that gets easier if I've got somebody else on the edge to make Myles Garrett's life easier. Like if I can have an edge rusher who can also drop in coverage a little bit, or a middle linebacker, that's where I have to focus. As long as I believe Grant Delpit and Grady Williams can play, because if not, then I gotta draft a safety.
Yeah, and I should pull back a little bit on Delpit. His injury, he should come back and play. It's Grady Williams that I think this team makes a mistake if they count on Grady Williams playing any football next year.
I don't disagree with you. But that's what Andrew Berry's he's got to make that decision because, like I talked with you the other day, I've really kind of started looking at draft prep, starting to look at mocks, seeing where I think they're going. In that area where they're drafting, most of the teams in that area are looking either offensive playmakers or they're looking edge and safety on the defensive side of the ball. So Andrew Berry's got to make that decision. Can I really afford another first-round draft pick in my secondary, or do I go ahead and get a linebacker, which is my biggest team need?
Yeah, and there'll be plenty of offseason to figure out those things, and they'll definitely be looking to fill some of these holes in free agency. And they did that last year with the defense. They had a lot of one-year signings. So, and that's led them to where they are now, where they have there's a lot of holes on that defense, and a lot of the guys that were already playing aren't going to be there.
Yeah.
Or at least the ones that were better, like Harrison and Goodson, they're gonna need to do something at those positions if they don't sign those guys.
Yeah, and I think Harrison and Goodson will both be re-signed and play next year. I think they did their job.
I hope so, because those were, after the D line and Ward, those are the only two players I think really played consistently better than average.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Totally had to hedge on that because I don't want to give him too much credit, but I don't want to kill him.
Right? No. I think that's fair.
It's like the problem with the Browns defense.
Like we talked about week in and week out with games against good teams where the defense didn't have to be great all game, but there had to be moments where some players were great, and those were the guys that stepped up and made a play here and there. Now, there are some unrestricted free agent linebackers that if their teams don't overspend for them, I would love to see the Browns overspend for. I think most of the teams in the league right now that have good coverage linebackers realize how valuable that is, and they're trying to keep them all, but it's hard to keep everybody.
Yeah, and that's the Browns are going to run into that when they're going to have to extend Baker at some point. You figure they'll extend Chubb. and those salaries start to add up, and that's just the fact of the NFL. That actually leads nicely into a comment I wanted to make about Sheldon Richardson. $1 million dead cap hit if they cut him.
Personally, I'm not cutting him.
I'm not saying they should cut him. I think there's times where he takes over games, but there's also a lot of times where he's invisible. I'm just saying that if they start thinking more in terms of sparing some cap space, that's a position that you could see that happen.
Yeah, if I believe I have some options where I can make it work, I could see it.
I'm just throwing that out there. I just that was interesting when I was looking at contracts. I was interested to see what everybody was getting paid and what it would be to cut them, and that one stood out to me. It was Sheldon Richardson, $1 million if you cut him. That saves the team about $13 million this season. So maybe they use that $13 million to sign a linebacker and another defensive tackle that are better bargains. I don't know. We'll see what Barry does in the offseason, and that'll answer a lot of questions heading into the draft.
Yeah, I don't think that would necessarily be a bad strategy. But, like I said, this is Andrew Barry's supposed to be one of the smarter men in the room. I don't know how much on that end of it Kevin Stefanski is involved. I don't know. But I think he has a clear, at least on the offensive side of the ball, he has a clear picture of what he wants. I have zero idea if Joe Woods is still the defensive coordinator next year. I have no idea.
I would like to see Joe Woods get another season. I don't think you can blame him for their just complete lack of talent, especially in the secondary. And people keep saying, oh, they had guys hurt. It's like, yeah, but if those guys are hurt, that talent's not on the field. And they just didn't have players on the field, and it showed Sunday, and I want to see what Joe Woods can do when they get him some actual players.
Yeah, and I agree. But hopefully those conversations are being had. Okay, if everybody is healthy, here's what we want to do. What pieces do we need to do it?
Yes, I totally agree. And I have confidence that they're going to have those conversations. This isn't same old Browns. The clown show is over, Jimmy.
Well, and that's, it's one of those things we talk about, when it comes to Midwestern smaller markets, it's always the easy fodder, We don't actually put a lot of work into the reporting. We just put the same old stuff out there. They're going to have to get rid of the same old Browns. It's not the same old Browns. This is a new team. They battled in that football game to the very end. I can't excuse the Chad Henne play, but they were fighting. They were battling. It's not the same team. It appears they've completely changed the DNA.
Yeah, they got beat by a better team.
Yeah.
That happens.
It's going to take next year to see what they really are.
I agree.
One thing that I am fortunate to look out for, to make it to the second round of the playoffs, but your out-of-conference schedule is going to be against teams that finish third place in their division.
That's a good point.
Could be a big help. Because what I saw out of Baltimore against Buffalo, it's hard for me to believe Baltimore is going to win a lot of games against the second-best team in other conferences.
We shall see, Jimmy. Well, thank you for joining me.
Oh, no place else I'd rather be, bro.
All right, and thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back with our normal weekly podcast with picks, and we'll talk about the head coaching hirings. And I've got some fire about the Houston head coaching job, but we'll get to that later in the week. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore, and from No Broken Legs, thank you for listening.
Every action has a repercussion. Lyrical bullets don't make me get the bussin'. Representing